Hey, and welcome back to Rennch. On today's episode, I'm going to attempt to pry a vintage Porsche apart with this jack. So if you guys have been following along in this build, you've seen that I started in the rear of the car, and then I worked my way into the passenger side quarter panel, and finally just finished the passenger side inside rocker area so I could put the quarter panel over it. Now, before I do anything else, I have to get the rear of the car all buttoned up. And I got another inside piece from Restoration Design for my rear latch panel. So if you check out a few videos ago, you'll see me trying to fit the rear latch panel. What I've realized as I've been working on the car is that this roll cage that is integrated all the way from the front to the rear of the car has kind of caused the entire chassis to shrink and compress a little bit. The result of that is that my new rear latch panel is like a ½ inch wider than the rear of the car. So what I realized I had to do is kind of spread the frame rails in the rear apart a little bit to get the latch panel to fit the way it was supposed to. I was able to prove the concept with a big full-size jack and a friend of mine, but I need to do it on my own this time. So I picked up this little bottle jack, and I hope that using this and a 2x4 or 4x4, I can spread the rear frame rails enough to get the latch panel in. So it's in there now. I've got it screwed in, so proof of concept is good. What I'm going to do is pull it off. I'm going to clean it and prep it. So I've got to do a bunch of grinding. I'm going to grind off any of the spot welds that were already there, clean up the metal, and get everything kind of ready to weld. We've certainly seen enough grinding on this channel, so I'm going to spare you me prepping this panel and getting it ready for welding. But when the time comes, I will fire the cameras back up and we'll see if I can figure out how to use this thing to get the car spread apart enough to get the rear latch panel on. I've made some really good progress. So I just basically got rid of anything extraneous, ground down any spot welds, got everything basically ready and prepped for welding. What I'm going to do now is on this side, the passenger side, you can see it's totally trashed. Like, it's just ripped apart. So I'm actually going to get in there with my welder and patch it up and really try to solidify it, as well as try to make it as flat as humanly possible. So let's jump in there with the welder, see if we can get everything ground down, flattened out, and basically ready and prepped for this rear panel. Well, I have to say that was really effective. One thing I did that one of you guys suggested, and I kind of poo-pooed it, and I'm sorry, is I actually ended up turning the voltage up on my welder, and I actually turned the wire speed up as well for this thing. And what I found was my welds are a lot flatter, and I have a lot less to grind now. So thank you for that tip, and I should have listened earlier. Anyway, I did pretty well with this. I think the flanges look amazing. And I did patch a hole that's on the front side of it, and then I did burn through a little bit, so I had to do some more pigeon poop welding to get it right. But I'm going to hit this with the grinder now. Not much actually on this outside flange, because as you can see, it's pretty flat. Like, it looks pretty good. I'm going to take a couple of straight edges and just kind of grind until it's about as flat as I can get it. I don't need to do a ton with some of the welds on the outside because they're not going to be seen or used or anything. It doesn't really matter if I grind those things flat. So what I'm concerned about is getting this plane as flat as I can and getting this plane as flat as I can so that this thing will go on the way it's supposed to and be nice and flat. And then, which I can actually test before I weld the other piece on, which is super cool. I can just sort of put it up and make sure that this thing is riding all the way in and it's nice and set. With all that done and flat, I can then try to jack the rails apart and see if I can get that centerpiece to get in there and throw a couple of tack welds in it and see if we're, you know, in the ballpark. Toasted. Car is flat and ready to rock. Next task is to drill out some holes where I can put spot welds and weld the thing on the car. I'm going to do it actually on this panel, and I'm going to see if I can actually drill a few holes in the car as well. This is where I wish I had kind of like a metal punch, because it's right on the edge and it's really hard to get a drill bit to function there, but I'm going to do a kind of a smaller one. I don't know, maybe 1/8 of an inch, maybe smaller, and see if I can just get a little bit of a hole in, because as long as I get a little bit of a hole, I can get the weld to kind of expand it as it bolts on, or as it welds on rather. So I drill out a couple of holes in this thing and jack this thing apart. All right, we're at the point where we have to see if we can figure out how to get this thing spread apart a bit. So just to remind you, I've got to move these just a couple of millimeters out so that I can get the piece to fall in snugly. This is what I've got for a setup. So I've got a board, and then I've got this bottle jack. And what I learned about the bottle jack, which is kind of interesting, I was trying to pump it like this, and it didn't work at all. But when I turned it down this way so that the pump itself is below, then it works fine. So that's what I'm gonna try to do. Yeah, we're gonna see. We're gonna see how this thing goes. But basically, I need to leverage this thing in here and get it to spread the body of the car enough for me to get the piece in, maybe put a tack weld or two in there, and or at very least a couple of screws to mount it. So let's give it a go. Well, it's a piece of the car now, which is pretty damn exciting. Before I go any further, I'm gonna just really over measure. I'm gonna put on my outside latch panel piece. I'm gonna put on my quarter panels. I'm just gonna kind of check everything out, make sure it's kind of square and level, and then weld up around the perimeters of each one. Weld here where I can. As you can see, the settings on my welder are so much better. The welds are so much smaller than they were. Just flat and easy to grind if I need to. Frankly, I don't really need to grind many of these, but I'm excited to kind of go around the perimeter and make sure it's all completely secure and welded up on each side. Then we get to move on to the outer piece and then the quarter panels, and then the whole rear is going to be pretty much done. So hopefully in the next couple of videos I have the entire rear of this car finished, which is super exciting. So I'm reasonably happy with the fitment of the quarter panels and the deck lid, but I have to keep in mind that I haven't yet fit the driver's side quarter panel. So there's a few things that are a few millimeters off that I'm kind of like, is that right? That said, I think the inner piece is gonna be fine. So I'm gonna wrap this video up, and then after this, I'm just gonna weld just a few more spots on it, like mostly on the bottom side, and just secure it to the body so it's good to go. Maybe hit it with some Por 15 before I get to the other piece, which is kind of the outer shell. Then I think after that, I'm gonna, the next video, I'm gonna fit this driver's side quarter panel. And again, make sure everything is completely buttoned up. And once it is, I mean, I'm pretty much good to weld the whole thing together. So I think maybe 2 more videos, but we'll see. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Hey, just for fun, why not subscribe? You know, it's super fun. I'm building a car and I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So thank you guys for watching. Check out the rest of the videos if you haven't checked out the Blasphemy build. Check out how this thing started, which was this big crazy wide body GT2 993 RSR. And now it's turning into a really cool little vintage racer again. So with that, I hope you guys have a great day. I will talk to you next time.